visit the webinar after the fact as well. Okay, so I'm going to just show you how to get started with Google Sheets, and I'm going to start with Google Drive. And in order to get to start a new sheet, you simply go to Google Sheets and you select New or Blank Spreadsheet. And what you'll get is a blank spreadsheet. So this is what a spreadsheet looks like to start with. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move myself over. I'm going to close this one, and I've started one where I sort of have some pre-made steps that follow the format of what I want to teach today. And really the rationale behind that is so that you don't have to wait for me to type in lots of data so that I have data to work with. So you see these various different tabs at the bottom. The reason I have those is because you can create multiple sheets within a Google Sheet. And what I did is I just did each step that I'm working along the way as a tab so that I don't have to do as much typing. Now here's the very first sheet. It's an empty sheet, and you can see that the way this works is right now I'm clicking into various different squares, and you can see that blue box following my mouse around wherever I click. Those specific spots are called cells, and the numbered area across the left are called rows, and of course the lettered things across the top are columns. In spreadsheets, when we refer to a cell, we refer to it by its address. So the cell that I'm in right here is B6 because it's in the column B and it's in 6. If I move over to here, that's D2. Okay, so now that becomes important when we start adding and subtracting formulas and doing various different things with formulas, because in spreadsheets, when we create formulas, we don't refer to specific numbers, we refer to cells that have numbers in them. So in a sense, these all sort of become variables of sorts, okay? So that's how that works. Now, the next thing I want to do is start to add in some column headers up here. So I'm going to create a spreadsheet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one that might just keep a few test scores or something, sort of a mini grade book of sorts, just so you can kind of see how these things work. So I'm going to put in a field, and I'm going to call it first name. And I'm going to put in a field called last name. Now, I'm separating these because if I ever want to sort by last name and I combine the two, it won't work very well. So it's always best when you're creating data to break the data down into its smallest components. And in this case, first name and last name are separated. Incidentally, if you do have them together in one field, there is a way to separate them, but that you have to take the intermediate workshop for me to teach you that, because I can't cover that in this one. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right to a shortcut here. So this is going to be something I'm going to put in test 1. So this is like, okay, I've created, this will be the first test. And if I want to create these, I could go in and type in test 2, test 3, test 4, etc. But at this point, I want to show you a shortcut that is provided for us in Google Sheets, which entails using this little square at the bottom right corner of the cell that's selected. And if I mouse over that, you see that little plus sign? What that means is it's going to copy the data across as I drag it. So if I click and drag across, you'll see that not only has it copied it, but it has incremented the numbers. It's smart enough to understand what needs to be incremented. And if that impresses you, as it does some people, if I were to type in something else that it understands, like a month. By the way, I'm going to erase this. This has nothing to do with the sheet I'm making. I'm just using this for demo purposes. And if I type in January and I do the exact same thing, go to the right-hand corner and click and drag to the right, you will see that it understands the series. It does it with anything that's a logical series, days of the week, months, numeric figures, things like that. It will work like that. So I'm going to undo that. Now's a good time to show you undo. And that's how that works. So it's a nice time saver. Okay, if I were to do it with something where it doesn't understand the series, like this, from the first name, and I drag down, it just makes a copy of it. And sometimes that's handy. Okay, you may be filling in data and you have the same thing going all the way down, and you just you can drag it for as long as you need to. So keep that in mind when you're creating your sheets. Okay, before I move further, I want to show you what some of the tools are on the top. Okay, we have our undo and redo tool. There's our printing tool. There's a format painter, which works very much like the format painter in Docs. Here is the zoom. And actually, you know what? Wouldn't be a bad idea for me to zoom in a bit here. I'm actually going to shut my camera off now. So you can just see a little bit better. So I just zoomed in a little bit more. That does not change my printing size. It's only changing my viewing size. It's just a zoom for visual purposes. Okay. Next to that are number formatting options, currency, percentages, and of course that's going to make a little more sense when we actually have some numeric data to try that with. So we'll go there. Here are my fonts, font sizes, various different things, bold, italics, and strike through, which a lot of times strike through is used to show negative numbers a lot of times. There's my fill color, which allows me to select an area and fill it with a color. Okay, so there's my fill. Borders, I'll get to those if you want to create borders around various parts of your page. And of course, left justify, and various different types of alignment things. I'm going to get back to these. And at the very far right is the functions button. And the functions allows me to put in things like sum, averages, and other types of things when I want to start getting calculations into my sheet. So the next thing I would probably do when I'm creating this kind of sheet is start to put in first names and last names. So I could put in somebody's name and just continue. So now, rather than having you sit and watch me do this, what I did is I made a tab in my spreadsheet that already has names in it. Okay, and you can see that there are a few test scores added. What I'm going to do is go in and add test scores for the rest of these people. So if I want to put in some other scores, I can just go in and click. Now, another way I can navigate here is I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard. The left, right, and down and up arrows will also navigate me around. So if I want to move quickly through a row, I can very quickly add in a number and just hit the right arrow key. There are other keys that do this as well, but why complicate it? And the next thing I want to do is I want to sort this. Now this is going to get a little tricky, and we're going to combine a couple of techniques here. We're going to combine sorting, and we're going to combine what I call freezing a row. And you're going to see why I need to freeze a row as soon as I sort. Now there are a couple of different spots you can sort from, but the easiest way to do it, or the simplest way is to, if I go, say, here to this B column, and I want to sort by last name. As you can see, these are not alphabetical by last name. So if I go here and I click and I do sort sheet A to Z, watch what happens. Well, first of all, the first thing you're probably noticing is that my header row got sorted because it alphabetized the whole thing. So we don't like that. So let's fix that. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to incorporate something that is called freezing a row. And what freezing a row does is it will lock a row or a column in. You can also freeze columns. The easiest way to freeze a row is very simple. You see this rectangle on the top left corner of the screen? When I see that there's a sort of a bolded border around it? If I drag this down by one row and drop it, this row is now frozen. See how it's separated from the rest of the sheet? Now what that means is when I scroll my data, look at that, that stays locked. It's frozen, as the name implies. So that keeps it locked in place. Now, if I had a real big sheet of data in here and I locked that top row and I had that frozen like that, that would be really beneficial to me because I'll be able to always see my column headers. So it's a good technique to get under your belt early on in your spreadsheet careers. So if I take this and put it back, I can unfreeze it. Okay, I can do that. If I wanted to freeze the names like this, I could also do that way. See, I could just drag that. Now you see I've got that sort of cross thing going on here. I'm going to leave those alone for now. Just wanted to show you it could be done. Now let's go back to sorting as we did before, and let's see what the behavior is with a sorted row. Okay, the other thing you want to pay attention to while we're sorting are the actual names themselves or the scores that are going with everybody's name, because I want you to see that when you do it, that the sheet is smart enough to know that it takes the rest of the data with it. It really wouldn't do me any good to sort everybody's name and then everybody's test scores wouldn't match their name. That wouldn't be one of the better things I would be doing. So let me just put in a few more scores here so you can kind of see that, and we'll move on from there. So pay attention to the scores, and I'm going to do a sort. So I'm going to go up to the B column, and I'm going to do sort A to Z. And as you can see, it sorted it perfectly, and it moved the scores right along with it. Okay, so you know, I've got that perfectly. The next thing I want to do is to add in formulas. Okay, so now we want to start to be able to analyze and get some reports out of the data that we've created in here. So I'm going to click on the next tab, which is for adding a formula. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways to add formulas. There's an easy way and there's a manual way. Okay, the manual way is very important. By the way, before we get to that, I want to show you something. Let me go back. You see how my cells are alternating in color? See how there's a light gray and a dark gray? That really makes your sheet nice and legible. And let me show you how I did that. I'm going to go back to the previous tab where that hadn't been done yet. And if I go to Format, you'll see something called Alternating Colors. And if I click that and pick the color scheme I want, well, hold on, I need to select the area of the sheet where I want to put this. If I, hold on, let me get started. Let me do this again. I'm going to select the part of the sheet I want to. I'm going to go to Format, and I'm going to go to Alternating Colors, and you'll see that it automatically does that for me. That's a real nice feature because 9 out of 10 times that's how you want to format your sheet anyway. So it's really nice that it just sort of fixes that for you right off the bat. So I wanted to show you that because it had already been done to the tab that I visited, and you were probably wondering how I did that. So in this particular one, I went in and highlighted the top row and changed the color. So that's why that's blue and it doesn't match the one on the previous tab. Now what I want to focus on is this. I went forward and I put in an average, a sum column, a minimum column, and a maximum column. That I just did that by typing it in. There was nothing special or exciting going on there. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create an average for this first student's set of test scores. So when I want to do a formula, this is important. When you want to do a formula, you always start the formula in the cell where you want the result of the formula to show. Where you want the answer to show is where you start. Okay. Now I'm just going to click in the cell. And if you look up at the top here, my entire toolbar is not showing, and that's because I have the alternating colors thing open. If I close that, I'm going to go all the way to the right to my auto sum or to my functions button, If you're not seeing that, you might see the three little dots that will expand your menu. Chances are, if you're using a smaller screen or you have less screen real estate, it will collapse. Let me show that to you. If I'm using a smaller screen, my toolbar collapses and I need to click the more button in order to find the hidden buttons, but I'm going to expand because it'll be easier for everybody to see. So what I'm going to do is, remember, I'm in my spot where I want to see the result. I'm going to click on my functions button and I'm going to select average because that's what I want to do. I want to average out this row. So I'm going to click average and you'll see that it puts in a little, syntax of a formula that that Google Sheets itself understands, but it's missing something within these parentheses. What it's missing are the cells that need to be calculated for the average. Now I could go in and type in cell C2, D2, E2, and F2, but that would be way too complicated. It's much easier to click and drag over the cells that you want to include in your formula. And when I have that and I hit the return key, it puts in the correct answer. Now, one of the problems, it's not formatted to be the same font size as these, which is why it doesn't look the same. So I could change that. Okay, so let me do that one more time. I'm going to undo it and do it again for you because I want you to see the process again in action. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to click for my average. I'm going to select it. While that's still open, I'm going to drag and paint across to the area that I want to include in my formula. And when I'm done, I'm going to hit the enter key or the return key. Okay, now when you do that one time, you don't have to go into each one of these individually and add the formula. Once you do it one time, you've got it locked in. All you have to do is utilize this drag and copy feature that we looked at earlier and just drag it across the area where you want the rest of it to show. So now we've got the whole thing calculated very quickly. We've got all of our averages calculated. Now, if I'm going to go in and I'm going to select it and I'm going to change it to match the font size of the rest of the sheet. So I'm going to set this to an 18-point font, and that helps you see everything a lot better. Okay, so the next thing you might realize is you might not need 90.75 or 79.5. We're not really looking for decimal values in our scores for our students. So what I'm going to do is select this whole area, and I'm going to utilize some of these buttons up here on top. So do you see this button here that has an arrow pointing to the left, and then there's one over here that has decimals pointing to the right. If I use the one pointing to the right, it's going to increase my decimal places. And if I use the one moving to the left, it will decrease them, so I can keep clicking it until I get no decimal places. Okay, you'll also notice that it will round up when it automatically does the rounding up. Look at the 90.8. When I click that and remove the decimal, it's going to give me a full 91. So that's how this works. So you can get a real clean looking sheet. Okay, if for some reason this has absolutely nothing to do with what we're doing, but I just want to show you how it works. Anyway, if for some reason I wanted to show this as currency, if I was working with money, I could actually click that and it will put in dollar signs. By the way, if you're putting in financial data or something like that in a spreadsheet, never type the dollar sign or the euro sign or whatever it is sign that you're putting in, because that messes up all your possibilities of calculations. Okay, always rely on the formatting up here, what I'm looking at, the formatting for that type of thing. Same goes, I'm going to undo that. Same goes for percentage. Okay, I might have to. Okay, so that's how it works. I don't want to use the percentage. It's not really representing it the way I want it to. Let me undo that. But never type that in. Always keep numeric data, raw data, no punctuation, no text. It messes up your whole sheet when you do that, okay? If you want it to show as currency or other types of things, you do that throughout with the formatting, okay? So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to add another formula, and this time I'm going to add a sum. And all I'm going to do is sum up the column. For whatever reason, you might want to just add up all the test scores. And this one's going to be a little trickier because I have to be careful not to include the cell that has the average in it. I don't want to add that into there. So watch this. I'm over here where I want to put my sum, and I'm going to click on this and just do sum. And I'm going to drag across for the 4 test scores, and I'm going to hit enter. Again, I can just drag down, okay? And it does the same thing. Now, maybe I want to create now a column where I want to find everybody's minimum test score. Okay, maybe I'm that nice that I drop your lowest test score. And I'm going to go in and I'll select min, and I'm going to drag across, and I'm going to hit enter. And there it is, there's my minimum. And again, I'll copy down. And I'll make this an 18-point font. And of course, you've probably figured out that I can do the same thing with the maximum. Okay, you can see there's max. Drag across the area that you want to find it in. And there it is. Now, again, I'm going to fix my font size. So we've got that. I forgot to fill this one in, so I can fix that. So now I've got a pretty good sheet. Now that's how that works. Now, if you look in here, you'll notice that it only has these few formula options. But if I click this thing that says more functions, I don't even want to look at this sometimes. This has the syntax for every possible thing that is available in here. Some of this, I don't even understand it. People who do statistics and things probably get some of this, and it's categorized by the various different types of functions that exist. So you can see that it can do quite a bit more than just these little things here. That's something for a future workshop to get deeper into those things. I just wanted to show you that they were available. But what I want to show you, what is important to show you, is the fact that I can also add functions manually. Okay, you can do any formula. So if you're a math teacher, you've already got this down. Okay, but anything that any formula you can write on a piece of paper and figure out, you can put into a Google spreadsheet. And I'm going to go down here, and let's say I want to get an average of the averages of my class, okay? Well, actually, let me get a sum of the sums first, because that's a little simpler. Then I'll do the averages of the averages. So I'm going to go here, and in order to put this in, I'm going to hit the equal sign. When you start a formula, you start in the cell where you want the answer to be, and you always start the formula with an equal sign. That's how you're telling Google Sheets that I'm putting in a formula. Okay, so I'm going to start with the equal sign, and what I want to do here is I want to start to add up these cells. So, or actually, okay, so I'm actually going to start with just a couple. Now, watch this. I can just start with the first cell, and you see how it puts the cell reference right in there, H2. Now, if I put the operator in, which is the plus sign, I can click the next cell, and then I have to put the next plus sign in, and I can do so for the rest. Now, there are shorter ways to do this, but what I'm trying to do here is teach you how to do a manual. If you know this, you can put any formula in that comes into your head, or anything that you want to do can be entered, because you can do it all manually. So this is how it works. And I know that this looks a little long, but that's how it works. And I don't need that last plus sign. So then when I get exactly what I want into the formula, I can double check it and take a look. I'll just hit the enter or the return key, and there is my sum. It puts it in for me. You see that? Now, what I want to do is get an average of the averages. So let's see how we're going to do that. Well, I'm going to start with the equals. And I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to put my sum. Okay, and you'll also see it gives me a little gift here. It gives me the sum, and it kind of figures out that I might want this column above it. It sort of understands contextually that I'm probably going to add up what's above it. Okay, but so there it is. Now that's been added. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by the number that I have here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, by 9. Okay, and that will give me the average for my class. I want to do one other simple one. Let me delete this, and I'm just going to average these last two because I want to show you how this works. And I'm just trying to simplify. Okay, so I'm doing these last two maximum scores. Okay, I don't know why I'd ever want to do that, but I still want to show you how it works. So I'm going to put in an equal sign, and I'm going to put in, I'm going to do this manually, so I'm going to do cell J9 plus cell J10, okay? And I want to have it divided by 2, right? That's how you would figure out the average of those two. Okay, now here's the problem. I'm going to hit enter. That is not an accurate an accurate result because I didn't, this Google Spreadsheets, just like real math, uses the order of operations. The order of operations would be, of course, exponents or parentheses, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally or whatever that is. So what I have to do is put the addition part into parentheses so that it gets solved first. And you can do it just like you do it on paper. So I think the moral of the story, the title of this segment is you can do it just like you do it on paper. If you had done it on paper without parentheses, it probably wouldn't have worked either. So that's how this works. And now I got a pretty accurate average between those two. So that's adding a formula manually, okay? The next thing I want to do is I want to make a chart, okay? Now, making a chart can be simple, but it can also be complicated, and it can also be a little tricky trying to figure out exactly what to select to get your chart to work properly. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the name, this area, from the first name or from the last name over, and the 4 test scores. Okay, and if I want to make a chart, charts are so useful because they just show you data with a picture very quickly and let you know what's going on immediately when you look at them. Now I'm going to click my Insert Chart tool up here. And there it is. It's made a chart. Now look what it's done. It's color-coded each of the tests and made a comparison of how each person did. So here's test 1, 2. You can see that in the key here that they are doing what the colors are of the various tests. And these are each of the students and how they did on each test. Obviously, my student Hines did a lot better on test 3 than on her other tests. Okay, but if you notice some of these other ones, they're showing they're pretty equal most of the way. It's that easy to make a chart. I'm going to make a different one. I'm just going to delete this. See this little menu up here? We call that the kebab menu. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to delete the chart. And I'm going to try, I'm going to make another one. I'm going to make a chart just of Cho's test scores, okay? So look at that. I just selected that. So what you select becomes the data that creates the chart. And look at that. That shows, well, she didn't start out too good, but she did really well, and then she kind of tapered off at the end. Okay, so I can really quickly find these things. Now, it's making bar charts here for me because that's the appropriate chart for this data. Google Sheets actually just figures out what's the best chart to make when you do data. Now, let's say that I want to take the students' last names and I want to do their average scores. Okay. Now, if I select the names and then I go to select their averages, you'll see that it deselects the names. So you have to hit a modifier key to make this work. Now, if I select this, and then I come over here and reselect, I'm holding down the command key on the Mac. You can do this with the control key on a PC and also on a Chromebook. So now I've got the names with the averages, and I should get myself a nice, really solid looking chart now with this. So let's see what this looks like. I'm going to click it, and there it is. Look, a perfect comparison of the averages of my students. I can see who my best people are and who, let's put it this way, who are some of my people that maybe need a little help. So, that's what it looks like, and it's great. Now, charts like this can actually be embedded right into Google Sites pages. You can embed the chart. And what's even more beautiful is that if the data changes in the sheet, the data on the chart will change. Let's do that. I'm gonna move this chart out of the way, and I'm gonna show you a good place to put the chart in a minute. And let's say that I made a horrible mistake entering Heinz's data, that these tens were indeed hundreds, and I need to go back and fix that. Now, when I do, look at the chart. You'll see that her chart now has been updated with that. So these are real-time pictures of the data that's in there. Now, what I like to do with a chart is this floating chart, it's okay if you have a small spreadsheet, but I find it to sort of get in the way most of the time. So what I like to do with a chart is I like to go up to this menu up here on the right, and it gives me some various different chart options. But the one that I like to do is this one called Move to Own Sheet. Now, what that does is it puts the chart down here in a tab right here. You see how it says Chart 4? And it puts it in a tab. Now, I can get back to my sheet here, and anytime I want to look at my chart, I go here. And this looks real nice when I go to print it or whatever. So it's really useful that way. That's just a preference that I have. I like to work that way. You might not like that, but I wanted to show you that that's available. Now, in here is my chart and this, and I also wanted to show you that, see how the chart, it says Chart 4. If I want to give that tab a more descriptive name, I can click in here. And if I double click in the name itself, you see it says Chart 4. I'll call this Average by Last Name. Okay, and then I will know all the time when I look down at the bottom of my sheet that that's what I'm going to get when I click there. That's what's going to show. So this is really useful. Now, see, all these tabs, they get saved with the sheet. Incidentally, like everything else in Google Drive, as I work, every step I make is getting saved. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's always saving. You never really have to worry about saving in Google Sheets. So that's where that is. Now, the next thing I want to look at is doing another kind of formatting. Okay, now we've already looked at the fact that we can, put in the types of, the alternating cell colors. What if I wanted to put a grid that's more visible in here, that's more apparent? You see this little grid thing here? See, I selected this area. I'm going to go up to this grid area, and you have these various different pictures of grid types. If I click this top one, it makes a perfect grid. Now, why would I need that? Well, one of my printing options is to remove the sheet grid lines. So if I want to have my own grid lines that show in the sheet, I can do it that way. And if you take some time and explore this, you'll see that there are a number of various different types of grid type. Maybe I just want a box around the whole thing, and whatever. But I'm going to undo that. I just wanted to show you that was there. But I want to show you another type of formatting. I love this type of formatting because we like to use spreadsheets to help us get and analyze data quickly. And this is one of those tools that really helps us analyze data quickly. And what this is what's called conditional formatting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the averages column. And what I want to do is, I don't really have anybody that has really low grades here, but let's say that I want to see anybody that's below an A in my class. Now, what I'm going to do is select this area, and I'm going to go to Format, and I'm going to select Conditional Formatting. Okay. Now, when I do that, a box opens up here on the right, and it's showing Apply to the Range. I don't have to worry about that because I did my selection prior to opening this box. Now, under this, you'll see Format Cells If. Okay, cell is not empty. That's the default. But look at all these other things here. Now, what I want to do, remember my goal, is to find anything less than a 90. Okay, because anything less than a 90 in this class is not an A. So I want to go to less than, and then I'm going to type in a value or formula, see how the box opened for me to type in. I'm going to do less than 90, and I'm going to hit done. And what you see here is, look, it made this color green where everybody has less than 90. So let me open that up and show you. I'm going to change the cell color so you can so this illustrates it a bit more. I'm going to make it yellow. See where that turned yellow? So what this will do is very quickly highlight data for you that you know when you're looking at it and you want to find things real fast, you can do it that way. Okay. There's another thing we can do. And for this, I'm going to need a different type of sheet. Okay, so I'm going to move over here to this last sheet here. And this has lots of stuff in it. Okay, what this is a spreadsheet that Google gives us for practicing various different spreadsheet techniques. And it's something that I just got from them. And I use it for a lot of workshops. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to do something called filtering data. And this is probably the most advanced thing that we're going to look at today. Additionally, if I do this as an intermediate workshop in the future, I'll probably include this again because it's the kind of thing that does get included. But I'm going to give you a sneak peek of intermediate, or maybe even a sneak peek of advanced, really. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go to my format area, and I'm going to select oh my God, actually, my fault. I need to go to the data menu, and I'm going to do create a filter. Okay. And when I do that, watch what happens to my sheet. Every column gets this little filter icon above it. Now that means that when I go to create my filter, I can filter by various different types of criteria of data. Now let's say that I want to see all the years where Brazil was the winner of the World Cup. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my filter, and I'm going to go in my winner column. And when I open it, you can see that it scans all the data that's in that column. So these are all the countries of everything that's included in the column that I just selected. What I want to do is I want to filter this to just Brazil. So what I'm going to do is uncheck these other ones. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. And you'll see now that it's limited this chart to only include the years that Brazil won. Okay, now I can, if I hit select all, see I just opened the filter back up. If I hit select all, it'll bring them all back. And the other thing I want to show you is a shortcut for doing what I just did. Okay, what I did is I had to go in and uncheck all of these. Okay, if I only want to check one of them, the easiest way to do this is to hit clear, which unchecks everything, and then select just the one that I want selected. That's the quicker and easier way to go to do this. And you'll see that it creates that filter for you. Okay, so this is a wonderful way to analyze data. Now, if I want to stop seeing the filter, a lot of times people panic at this point because they think they're Their sheet has, nothing's ever been deleted. It's simply hiding the values. I can go back in here and hit select all again and bring them back. The other thing I can do is I can go back up to data and see this thing that says, I can just turn the filter off and do it like that. So that's more of an advanced look at what we can get when we filter. Now, the other thing I only want to show you one other thing here is I need to actually go back to Drive to do this. And I show this with almost all of the Google apps because it is an important thing. Many of you already have spreadsheets in Excel that you're already using. So what I want to do is show you how this can convert from an Excel sheet. So what I'm going to do is go to my, I'm in my Google Drive, and I'm going to go to File Upload. And I think I have some stuff on my sheet here. Let me see here. I need to put this in alphabetical order. And oh, I'm in the wrong. I need to go to my desktop. Excuse me. So let's see here. Looking for a spreadsheet. And oh, here's one. Statement activity. I'm not quite sure what this is. I think I know what it is. So I'm going to open this up and see it's an XLS file, an Excel file. And so it's uploading it. And if I click on it, see it uploaded it, it shows it down here on the right-hand corner. But let me show it to you in Google Drive. So I'm going to go to Recent, and there it is. And you'll see the icon is different. This is my Google Sheets icon, the green square, but this has an Excel icon. That means that it is not native or usable in Google Sheets yet. I can look at it. I could click on it and open it and look at it, but I can't do anything with it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find another one of those. Here's one, Test Data XLS, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to try to open it up. This is just some, this is not real stuff here, okay? And what I'm doing here is see if I go to Open With and I select Google Sheets, this will convert it to a Google Sheet to where I now can edit this and do whatever I want with it. This is totally editable as if I typed it into Google Sheets. So that started as an Excel document, and I was able to upload it and use it that way. Reciprocally, I like to say that, reciprocally. If I go here and I go to File, Download As, if I want this to be an Excel document, I can select Excel, and this will download this to my computer. So if I'm using Microsoft Office, or maybe I want to get this to somebody who's using Microsoft Office and they don't use Google Sheets or whatever, and or they are specifically requesting an Excel document, I can download it and send it to them that way. While I'm here, I might as well show you that not only can I do that, but I can. This one I love. One of my favorite things in Google Docs. It runs across the board in all of the Google apps. This thing that's email as attachment. If somebody requested this sheet as an attachment in the old days, I'd have to save it to my computer, go to my email, upload it to my email, and send it as an attachment. Well, with this, I can do it right from Google, right from the sheet itself. So now, when I click this, I can decide, do I want it to be a PDF file or an Excel file? Let's make it a PDF. I don't want them to be able to change it. And if I put in the email address of who I want to get this, I can put that in here, and then I could put in a little email. So this is basically like sending a Gmail right from your Google Sheet. If I wanted to send a copy to myself, I can do that. And if I hit send, it will send to me. I'm not going to send it because I don't have my Gmail activated in my Stockton account, and it won't work. And I want to spare you all the error messages, but I can assure you it works great when your Gmail is on. And it's a great, quick, and easy way to get any document to people when they are requesting attachments. So I'm going to go back to this tutorial thing, and I am going to open up to questions at this point, because I think it's about that time. So does anybody have a question?
Okay, Phil, Deborah has a question, and she wants to know,
Okay.
how did you freeze the row earlier?
Okay. In order to freeze a row, in this particular sheet, this row's already frozen, so I'm going to unfreeze it, and then I'm going to show it to you again. So this is a perfect sheet. The row is not frozen. See that? So now my goal is to freeze this top row. It's the key to freezing is this top left square. It doesn't look that it doesn't look that impressive. It just looks like an empty cell, but that cell has a lot of power. And the one power it has is the ability to freeze. So now if I want to freeze a row, I have to drag the horizontal line. If I want to freeze a column, I have to drag the vertical line. Well, I want to freeze the row. So I'm going to just click on that little fat line right at the bottom of that cell and just drag it and lock it into place in that one spot. Okay. By the way, another thing this cell does while I'm up here is if you click the cell, it selects your entire sheet. If for some reason you ever want to apply something to a whole sheet, there you go. That's how it works. Okay. Did that help you, Deborah?
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? You can
No.
keep your mics unmuted now at the question portion of the show.
No.
This is a general question. I know that it automatically saves, but is there a point where I thought I read someplace where it doesn't save it forever?
Oh, it does.
It does?
Well, I mean, forever, that's debatable. I mean, there could be like, nuclear holocaust or, numerous things that could mess that up. But
The zombie
forever, in
apocalypse.
terms of my definition of forever, it does. Okay. Which means that anytime I feel pretty confident that anytime I want to come back to this, it will be there. So it does save it. Now, if I delete something from my drive, it will put it into the trash and it will hold it there for 30 days.
Okay.
Okay, there is a there is a string attached to that, but no, it will stay. I remember I started a Google Drive years and years ago when it first started, and you wouldn't believe how primitive it was. It didn't even have half the stuff that I'm showing you today. But I think I left that for months and months and months, and I went back, after not even looking at it for months, and everything that I did was still sitting there. It's actually very funny when I go to school districts and I do these workshops at school districts, and there are teachers who took an in-service 2 years before they see me. And at that in-service, they created a few Google documents, and they have never logged into Google again in that interim. And they log back in and they go, oh my God, this is the stuff I did when I was at that in-service 2 years ago. So then it starts to register like, okay, this all goes within my Google account. It all goes inside of there.
And
Okay.
how would you access earlier versions of previously saved versions?
That's a good one. If and this goes also across the board with all the Google documents. If I go to the file menu, you'll see version history. Okay. And if I go to the second option, it says see version history. If I click that, this panel on the right is showing me every time I have changed or edited that document. And if I click in any one of those, it's going to show me the changes that took place in those documents. Okay, so that will show them to me. Okay, now if for some reason I wanted to get back to one of these older versions, like I was just absolutely unhappy about the new changes I made, and I want to get it back to the original version or to a previous version, when I click on that previous version, okay, if I go up to the top and hit restore this version, it will restore it to whatever it is that I'm looking at that spot. So the version history, now I'll tell you where else version history is really cool, is when you assign something like this to students in a group and you want to kind of see who did what in it. When you click on version history, if you're doing this in a classroom, when you click on version history, not only will you see the version history, but you will also see the name of the person who contributed or did not contribute. Look at this, Faisal contributed to this on June 6th. Okay, see the purple thing there? So that's how that works. Good question. Anybody else?
So while you're thinking about a question, we still have 2 minutes left. I just wanted to quickly ask, was this a productive section to you? Did you learn anything new, or everything you saw today impressed you? Or, I mean,
For me, I learned a lot. I didn't know about the click and drag to add information into a formula. I didn't have any idea about that.
Cool.
So I really don't use Sheets. So I was up here with the FXs. I thought that's where the formulas went. All I'm Excel.
This works almost exactly the same as Excel. It's amazing. I'm surprised they didn't get sued for it.
But I think there's more shortcuts to this than there is in Excel.
Yeah.
This is a little bit more user friendly.
What do you teach?
I teach second grade.
Oh, okay.
But
there's a lot you can do. You know, I use spreadsheets for everything. It's not always, you know, that I have my whole record collection in a spreadsheet. You know, I use them for everything.
But I like this because we do have to do reports, and I do have, so for test grades and the function where you weeded out who have an A, like that type of thing is going to be very helpful for me, make my life easier.
Right, and the more you know that exists, the more you realize you can start building that in. A lot of times you don't use these things because you don't know you can do it. Now you know you can do it, so you go, oh my God, I'm going to make a sheet for that because I'll be able to very quickly isolate the data I need to get the answer I need. You know.
Right.
Correct, and the fact that you're doing it in the cloud means that you have access to this anywhere you are and anytime. Unless you're using Microsoft. I mean, if you're using Microsoft as a client and the file is saved on your computer, you won't have access to it unless you're in that computer, unless you store it in the cloud. So with Google, it's automatic. So that file is stored. All you need to do is log into your account and look for the file anywhere you are, anytime, and work with it and share it and etc.
So I turned the camera back on to let you know there was a human being here again.
So I want to thank you again for participating, and I did put a link earlier how you can register for additional webinars. This is the second round of free introductory webinars. So, and last, the next one after this series is completed, we are going to be working on the intermediate, and the intermediate part will not be free. There will be a very minimal charge.
Yeah, because it's only an hour.
Exactly. So, and there will be materials and links provided. The quality will not be any different because it's the same instructor, and Phil always delivers quality.
So that means it's not getting any better.
But there will be materials and links and stuff that you can actually refer to. and access to the videos as well.
I put the
After
link
the
into
fact.
the presentation in the chat. It's in there, that hyperlink. So if you want to get to the presentation, that it pretty much shows you everything I did.
Exactly. So I've one more time, any questions before we exit? Okay. So if you do have any questions, save them for the next webinar that you register for, and you can ask them even though it's not related to that webinar.
We always go on a little bit early.
Yes.
So if you ever have a question from the previous webinar and you come in and want to ask a question while we're testing our mics and everything like that, feel free.
Feel free. All right. So thank you very much again. Go ahead.
I do have August 15th. I have a webinar that I applied for, but my school district, they said these webinars were free. You said this the last free one?
No.
This series.
The series.
Oh, okay.
Every
Yeah.
single
So
one that you
you're
take.
good.
Yeah. Every single webinar that you register for this series is free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So once we complete the series and we go now from the introductory to the intermediate level, then that next series will be charged. I mean, you will have to pay a small fee to participate.
Oh, I see the titles of these, say introduction after. Okay. All righty.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, you guys have a good
These are the bait. See these.
Oh, I see. Oh.